Good day, I'm William Garvey, Editor-in-Chief of Business and Commercial Aviation magazine. Airshow activity is getting into high gear about now, so today I'm speaking with John Cudahy, President of the International Council of Airshows, to learn more about that unique form of outdoor theater. How significant is military participation to any airshow's success?
Historically, over the last 4 decades, it's been very significant. Everything about our business, our surveys, our common sense tells us that the military is one of the bigger draws. It is the goal of our industry, even as we continue to encourage and support that military involvement, to also develop an equally strong civilian base of pilots and make the civilian end of our business very attractive, so that in the absence of military, as we saw last year during sequestration, our events will still be attractive to the public.
How serious was the hit as a result of sequestration in 2013?
It was very serious and at a number of levels. At a psychological level, it was a hit to our business that was bigger even than the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. It reduced the number of air shows by about 25%, and it even reduced attendance at air shows that did go ahead and run as scheduled by up to 25-30%, in some cases as much as 60 or 70%. And so that was both an economic hit and a psychological hit. The business is recovering from it. We're off to a very strong start in 2014, and indications are that that will continue. Pre-sale tickets, advanced ticket sales are very strong for the remainder of the year, and our members are very bullish about the prospects of a very successful season this year.
Why do you think the military relented and returned?
Well, I think part of it was the shock of sequestration that caused them to cancel in the first place last year has been replaced all throughout the government with an understanding that sequestration may be here to stay and that we need to learn to live with it rather than expect that it will be reversed. But I also think that last year the military had a bit of an eye-opening experience as it relates to their involvement in air shows. Our air shows, our events have been for some time now an important way for the military to connect with the general public, not just on recruiting issues, but on communicating the mission of the military, of how professional and well-trained our servicemen and women are. And when they lost that last year, they lost one of the few connection points they have with the American public. And by year's end last season, it was clear that they wanted to be back in air shows just as much as we wanted them back in.
There are critics. There are critics in the aviation community who fault airshow and airshow performers as, reckless, if you will, side of aviation and chilling people, the general public, about safety and the sensibility of pilots and that sort of thing. It's not my view, but I have heard that criticism. Have you heard it, and what's your reaction?
I have heard it, and as you might expect, I don't agree any more than I agree that watching a NASCAR race somehow reflects on people who drive their station wagon up and down the interstate. It is clearly a different kind of flying. Nobody would support or encourage your typical private pilot to fly upside down 50 feet off the runway at 150 knots. But I think the vast majority of pilots and aviation enthusiasts understand that this is flying at the outer edge of the envelope, that it's recognized as something that is much more dangerous than typical general aviation flying. But it's also managed by people who understand the risk, first of all, and then mitigate that risk as best they can.
Air shows contribute positively to aviation as well, do they not?
They do. In fact, just this weekend I was at a graduation of American University, and I saw that somebody had submitted a doctoral dissertation on the history of air shows as a way of supporting general aviation. And his dissertation supports a long-held belief that I have, which is that air shows are where much of the American public has their only interaction with general aviation in a typical year, and that many of those men and women go to air shows, are infected with the general aviation bug, and later come to become pilots or become involved in aviation and somehow because of that. I stopped counting the number of military pilots, airline pilots, CFIs, and other aviation professionals who first became interested in aviation because they attended an air show as a young kid or a young adult. I think we are an important ambassador on behalf of all of aviation, not just general aviation, because we often introduce aviation to people who otherwise would not be exposed to it.
Some good insights into the business of air shows from John Cudahy of the International Council of Air Shows. This is William Garvey of Business and Commercial Aviation Magazine. Thanks for listening.